I transferred $9,400 to pay in property taxes to keep the house in our name. A week later, my cousin slipped and said, "The backyard party's just bloodline only. Sorry." When I asked, my mom said, "It's better this way." I just smiled, froze the tax refund account. The next morning, I got an email, "Ownership claim under review," and then a text from my dad. "They froze our title. Call me." I paid $9,400 to keep the house and the family. 7 days later, my cousin told me I wasn't part of it. The house was on the verge of being taken by the county for unpaid property tax. I didn't hear it from my parents or a sibling. I found out through a notice addressed to current occupants stuffed in my dad's glove box. He shrugged it off when I brought it up, said he was waiting for a good time to handle it. My mom, as usual, acted like the problem would solve itself. It wouldn't, and the house mattered. It had been in the family since the early 70s. My grandparents worked themselves raw to pay it off. It was where every birthday, every Christmas, every major family memory happened. So, I transferred $9,400 from my own account and sent the confirmation screenshot to the family group chat. No one replied, not even a thumbs up. I didn't care. Not at the time. I figured whatever, at least the house was safe. Then a week later, Jared, my cousin, texted me, "Backyard party this Saturday. Come through." That part was normal. We always had backyard parties. Burgers, cheap beer, folding tables. But an hour before the party, another message popped up. "Actually, the backyard party is for blood relatives only." Sorry, I stared at it for a long time. Blood relatives. I'm my dad's only son. Jared is my dad's sister's kid. What was I supposed to be then? Furniture. I drove over. Not to start drama. I just needed answers. But before I could get to the door, my mom came out like she'd been waiting. All she said was, "It's for the best." She didn't say who's best. I didn't reply, just walked back to my car and left. On the way home, I opened my banking app and froze the account where the state was supposed to deposit the property tax refund. I had set it up in my name when I paid the bill because I didn't trust anyone to handle it. Good call. The next morning, I checked the mailbox and found a plain envelope with a county seal. Inside was a one-liner. "Ownership claim pending. Your submission is under review." That stopped me cold. I didn't submit anything. Then I got a text from my dad. "They've frozen our ownership. Call me." No. Hello. No. How are you? Just panic. I didn't call him back. Something was off and I wasn't going to walk into it blind. I started going through documents, bank statements, house records. I checked the county website and saw a pending change of ownership filing submitted 2 days after I wired the money. The name on the request wasn't mine. It was Jared's. And that's when it clicked. The party wasn't just a party. It was a celebration. They were kicking me out of my own bloodline because they thought they had already taken everything I'd saved. They were wrong. I let them sit in silence for 3 days. No calls, no texts, nothing. They tried acting like it was some kind of clerical mix-up. The group chat turned into a circus of half-baked excuses and fake confusion. Anyone else get a weird letter from the county? Think it's just a delay in the system. Jared, did you maybe fill out something wrong? That one made me laugh. They all knew exactly what was going on. They were just testing the waters to see how much I knew. So I stayed quiet. Silence makes people nervous. Let them talk themselves in circles. I was already 10 steps ahead. First thing I did was pull up every document I had. Payment records, timestamps, account numbers. I had it all saved because I don't just throw money around without backup. I also had emails between me and the county clerk's office. And most importantly, I had a phone recording from the day I paid where the woman on the line told me, "Once this is paid, the property remains under current ownership unless a claim is filed." Guess what? Someone filed 2 days later. Not me. The claim came from Jared. Same guy who told me the party was for blood relatives only. His signature was on the scanned copy the county he posted under the Public Records tab. The signature was pathetic, rushed, and sloppy, not even trying to look official. The address he listed as primary residence was the very same studio apartment I was renting to him. That's when it all came together. They thought they'd pulled it off. Jared had filed a transfer claiming he was the rightful heir, probably spinning some story about family approval. And no one challenged it because no one expected me to check. They thought I'd be too humiliated to fight back. They didn't realize who they were dealing with. Uncle Joe was the first to break the silence. He called me straight up. No text. I heard something's going down. You okay? I told him I wasn't okay, but I was handling it. He just said, good. You always were sharper than the rest of them. Then he hung up. That was it. No fake sympathy, just respect. That's why I've always had time for Uncle Joe. That same day, I filed an official fraud report with the county. Not just an objection, a full challenge, attached every document, every screenshot, every audio file. The case manager assigned to it replied within a few hours, saying the claim had been flagged and frozen pending investigation. Then I turned to the apartment. I'd been charging Jared $500 a month. That was a gift, and he knew it. The place could easily go for $850 with the utilities bundled in. I'd been cutting him a deal out of loyalty. He hadn't paid this month, which wasn't surprising. I sent him one reminder. Nothing. So, I texted my property manager. Change the lock code. Post the eviction. Don't negotiate. 2 days later, the listing was live with a new rent price. I didn't even need to advertise. My inbox was flooded. First showing filled within hours. Jared texted the next morning. Yo, what's going on? I tried to get in the building. I'm locked out, then another. I just need a few days. Come on, man. I didn't reply. You don't get grace from someone you tried to rob. Meanwhile, my dad called again. I didn't pick up. This time he left a voicemail. Adam, listen. We didn't know about the claim. It wasn't discussed. Your mom is very upset. She's not eating, right? Like guilt was going to change what happened. They had the party. They locked me out. They watched Jared file the paperwork. No one stopped him. I spent the evening drafting a letter for the county hearing. In it, I included a detailed timeline, documents proving my financial contribution, and a statement of intent to pursue civil damages if the fraudulent claim wasn't rejected. The last line I wrote wasn't legal. It was personal. I saved this home from auction with my own money. If someone wants to steal what I paid for, they'd better be ready to do it in open court. By then, I had made up my mind. This wasn't going to be a quiet fight. This was going to be public. By the end of that week, the group chat had gone quiet. The last message was from my mom. We all need to talk soon. This is getting out of hand. No, it was getting real. The county called to confirm that my fraud complaint had been escalated. The woman on the phone was polite but firm. She said the ownership transfer was on hold pending a formal review, and that the hearing would likely happen within the month. That was all I needed. I didn't tell anyone in my family. Instead, I started preparing for the next move. I'd been quiet long enough, so I drafted a mass email to every member of the family. No emotion, no begging, just facts. I outlined what Jared had done, how he submitted a claim 2 days after I paid the tax, how my name was the only one listed as the payer, and how he lied on the documents by listing my rental property as his primary address. I attached the evidence and sent it. 20 minutes later, my phone exploded. Missed calls from my dad, my aunt, even Jared's sister. Jared himself didn't try calling. He texted, "Why are you turning this into a war?" That was rich coming from the guy who filed a fake claim and threw a party to celebrate stealing a house. I still didn't respond. I'd already started something and now they were scrambling. A day later, Uncle Joe called again. "Just got your email," he said. Jared's over his head. I told him I wasn't looking for sympathy. He said, "You're not getting any. I just want you to win clean." Fair enough. Later that week, I got a certified letter from a law firm representing Jared. It was pathetic. A cease and desist for public defamation. Like I didn't have every word and document to back me up. I laughed and dropped it in a folder. Then I did something that really rattled them. I posted the entire story, redacted slightly to avoid legal blowback on Reddit. Title: My cousin tried to steal my house after I saved it. Here's how I made it public. The story gained traction fast. Thousands of upvotes. People messaged me telling me how they'd gone through the same thing. Others offered legal advice. A few said they were rooting for me to take everything and walk. I didn't post it out of spite. I posted it so they'd know their shame wasn't going to be buried in a living room discussion over sweet tea and Bible verses. If they wanted to betray someone, they'd have to do it in front of an audience. Then I did one final thing. I forwarded the Reddit post link directly to the family group chat. No message, just the link, and I left the group. 5 minutes later, my mom called. I watched the screen light up and then go dark. I didn't pick up. I was done talking. From now on, they could listen. The Reddit post blew up faster than I expected. I hit submit, closed the app, and went to bed. By morning, it had over 10,000 upvotes and a comment section that looked like a courtroom gallery. People weren't just reading, they were taking sides. Most of them were on mine. My notifications were a blur. Messages from strangers telling me their own stories about family betrayal. A few lawyers offered advice in the comments. One guy, probably a landlord like me, just wrote, "Evict them all. Clean sweep." That's when I knew I'd struck a nerve. What I didn't expect was how fast it would make its way back to my family. I thought maybe a week, maybe someone would stumble on it, or maybe Jared would figure it out when his friends started acting weird. I underestimated the power of a good scandal. The link I dropped in the family group chat was all it took. Within hours, Natalie messaged me directly. "Seriously? You posted our business online? What's wrong with you?" No mention of Jared filing a fraudulent claim. No mention of them excluding me from the party or freezing me out. Just pure panic that someone had turned on the lights. Then came the calls. First my mom, then my aunt, then my dad, all back to back. I didn't answer a single one. My voicemail filled up with the usual guilt slinging. "You're tearing this family apart. Your grandmother is devastated. Jared's job is in danger." Good. They wanted to dig a hole and bury me in it. They just didn't expect I'd claw my way back out and build a stage on top. Jared didn't even call. He sent a text. "You need to take that post down. It's ruining everything." I didn't reply. That sentence told me everything I needed to know. He wasn't sorry about what he did, just sorry he got caught. Then came the real blow. Uncle Joe called. He wasn't yelling, wasn't dramatic, just straight as always. "Your grandma wants a word. Says she won't speak to anyone else until she hears your side." That meant something. She never takes sides. She's old school. Grew up in a time when family meant sticking together no matter what, even if it meant swallowing dirt. So if she was calling me, she already knew something was off. I went to her house that evening. She sat me down at her kitchen table and said, "I read every word you wrote, and I believe you." I just nodded. She told me Jared had come to her crying, trying to get her to talk to me to tell me to take the post down. He blamed everyone but himself. She said, "I told him to go look in the mirror." Then she said something I won't forget. "You gave them a chance to be decent. They used it to stab you. Now they're bleeding and they want you to stop the pain." I stayed for dinner. We didn't talk much more about it. That night, the county sent me an official letter. Hearing scheduled for June 20th. All parties required to attend. I started pulling together everything. Documents, bank records, call logs, even the video from when I paid in person. I wasn't going into that room hoping to win. I was going in to bury every lie they told. Meanwhile, the Reddit post was still climbing. A local podcast messaged me asking to talk. I said, "No, this wasn't about fame. I wanted them to feel what I felt the second I read. Blood relatives only." My dad left a long voicemail. Next night, his voice was wrecked. He said my mom wasn't eating, that Jared was being harassed online, that he couldn't even show his face at work. Then he said, "Please, we need to fix this before the hearing. You don't understand what you've done." I saved the voicemail and played it back twice. Not once did he say, "I'm sorry." Not once did he admit what they did, and that told me everything I needed. They didn't want peace. They wanted silence. I wasn't going to give it to them. The county building was gray, silent, and smelled like paper that had been sitting too long. I walked in wearing a press shirt and carrying a binder labeled Property 219B fraud case. Jared came in 10 minutes later with his mother. She avoided eye contact. He looked like someone had pulled him out of bed and dragged him into a courtroom. The hearing wasn't in some big dramatic courtroom. It was a sterile office with a round table, a county representative, a legal clerk, and a digital recorder in the center. We all sat, exchanged stiff nods, and the rep began reading the case summary aloud. When she got to the part about payment received by Adam D. Carter, Jared visibly flinched. She turned to him first. You submitted a claim stating that you were the legal heir and sole occupant. Can you provide evidence of ownership or financial contribution? Jared mumbled something about being told it was okay by family. That was it. No paperwork, no receipts, just a verbal excuse backed by nothing. He looked at his mom, then at the clerk like someone was going to swoop in and explain it all for him. They didn't. Then it was my turn. I opened the binder, laid out the timeline, handed over hard copies of the receipts, and played a short clip of the phone call with the county clerk confirming my status as the payer of record. I even included a dated copy of the text Jared sent me. Sorry, backyard parties for blood relatives only. The rep didn't say anything for a full minute. Then she sighed and said, It's clear that Mr. Carter provided financial rescue of this property. This claim was submitted under false pretenses. The pending transfer is void. Jared didn't look surprised. He just looked empty. They didn't say anything when the meeting ended. His mother grabbed her purse and walked out. He stood there for a second, then left without a word. Outside, I expected to feel better. But it wasn't satisfaction I felt. It was clarity. These weren't people I'd lost. They'd never been mine to begin with. Later that night, I got a message from Natalie again. You won. Is it enough now? I didn't answer. Instead, I filed a notice with the county to officially transfer 100% ownership of the property to my name. My lawyer made it airtight. Then I called the tenant waiting on the apartment Jared had just been evicted from. She was thrilled. Signed the lease on the spot. The next morning, I sat down and wrote one more Reddit post, an update. I laid out what happened at the hearing, how Jared had nothing to show, how the transfer was tossed out, and how I now owned the house outright. At the end, I wrote, They made their choice. I just made mine louder. And then I posted it. The update hit harder than I expected. Within hours, the comments poured in. People weren't just satisfied. They were invested. Complete strangers had followed the story like it was a Netflix drama. And now they wanted closure. And they got it. Screenshots of Jared's blood relatives only. Text went viral. People were stitching my story into TikToks, turning it into cautionary tales and rants about toxic families. One guy even made merch with a line printed across a t-shirt. I didn't stop it. I didn't care. Because for the first time in a long time, the truth wasn't just mine. It was public. That silence I used to hate from my family, it turned into quiet shame. The group chat I left never recovered. Nobody knew what to say. No one tried to defend themselves anymore. Even Natalie gave up trying to guilt me after the final Reddit update. And Jared gone deleted his social media, stopped responding to messages, vanished from the neighborhood circles he used to flex in. Word spread fast. His friends turned their backs, not because they cared about me, but because no one wants to stand next to the idiot who tried to steal a house and got roasted on the internet for it. My dad showed up at my apartment the week after the hearing. No warning. Just stood on the sidewalk like he thought I'd pity him. He looked older than I remembered, more fragile. He said he didn't know Jared filed the claim, that my mother wasn't involved, that it all spiraled. I listened without saying anything. Then I told him, I don't need to hear excuses. I needed a family. I got users. He asked if there was a way to fix it. I looked him straight in the eye and said, You fix broken things. This wasn't broken. It was designed wrong from the start. He left without arguing. A few days later, the refund check came in. After county deductions, it was just under the full $9,400. I deposited it into my LLC account. Felt clean, like the final stitch in a wound that was already healing. That same day, the old house got listed. I'd already had the locks changed, brought in a contractor for minor repairs, and installed cameras. It rented in less than a week. Solid tenants, full price, no drama. The apartment Jared used to rent, leased at the new rate. No more favors. I told my property manager to never accept anyone from that last name again. I didn't care if it was petty. They'd already taken their shot. But I wasn't done. I took everything, every message, document, county file, photo of the letter, voicemail, transcript, and wrote a detailed blog post. Not just a story, a full breakdown, timeline, evidence, a map of every choice and every lie. Then I emailed the link to the entire family. Subject line: now it's part of your legacy, too. No message, no follow-up. I watched the email tracker show who opened it. Every single one did. And no one responded, because what do you say to the person you tried to erase when they end up writing the final chapter and putting your name in bold? I didn't want their apology anymore. I wanted them to remember what I said once. Loyalty without respect is slavery. They didn't listen then. They understand it now. Came on a Wednesday. Plain white envelope. No return address on the front. Just my name first and last in careful handwriting I didn't recognize. The postmark was from a town 3 states away, one I'd never visited. I almost tossed it aside, assuming it was junk, but something made me tear it open. Inside was a folded letter and a name I hadn't heard in years. Elizabeth Carter, my aunt, my dad's older sister, the one no one talked about. When I was a kid, she used to send me birthday cards with $10 bills tucked inside. Then, around the time I turned 12, she vanished. Disappeared from holidays. No more cards, no more mentions. If I ever asked, my mom would just say, she chose distance, like that was an answer. I assumed she'd cut herself off from the family. Now she was writing to me. The letter wasn't long. Adam, I've been watching things unfold. I saw what you posted. You did the right thing. I know we haven't spoken in a long time, and I owe you an explanation. There are things you were never told about the house. About your father, about the family. I left for a reason. If you want answers, come see me. It's time. Elizabeth. There was an address scribbled at the bottom along with a phone number. I stared at it for what felt like an hour. Everything I thought I'd known about the family was already halfway undone. Now this. I texted her number. Is this really Elizabeth? She replied instantly. Yes. Call me when you're ready. I'll tell you everything. I didn't sleep much that night. My mind ran wild. What did she mean about the house? What had I not been told? The next morning I called her. Her voice was calm, but tired, like someone who'd been holding her breath for years. I wasn't the one who left, she said. I was pushed out. I didn't even know what to say to that. She asked if I could come visit that weekend. I booked the flight that night. When I told Uncle Joe I was going to see Elizabeth, there was silence on the other end of the line. Then he said, so she finally reached out. You knew she was still around. I always knew. I promised her I wouldn't say a word. She made me swear, but maybe it's time. Now I was even more confused. What could be so big that she cut off contact with the entire family? Why did she trust me with it now and not before? That weekend, I landed in a small town where everyone knew everyone. Her house was modest, tucked behind rows of oak trees. She opened the door before I even knocked. We sat in her kitchen for 2 hours. And what she told me made everything else feel like the opening act. Turns out the house wasn't supposed to go to my dad. It wasn't supposed to be a shared asset. My grandparents had a will, an original one, naming Elizabeth as the sole inheritor. She had cared for them both while my dad and the others dipped in and out. She took the night shifts. She made the medical decisions. They left her the house for a reason. But when they passed, the will mysteriously disappeared. My father and Jared's mother claimed there was never a formal document. My dad convinced the rest of the family to divide the assets, and somehow over time the house became the family house. Elizabeth didn't fight it. She walked away. She said trying to argue with thieves in their own court was a waste of breath. And now years later, she was seeing it happen again with me. But she still had something. A scanned copy of the original will, dated, signed, and witnessed. She slid it across the table. You want to finish this story? She asked. Here's your ending. Everything I thought I'd salvaged turns out I had only reclaimed part of what was already stolen. And suddenly I had the proof to burn what was left of their lies to the ground.